This disturbed me. It's on my website. I found it on my own website on michaelsavage.com. In England, some university academicians are making the argument that pedophilia is normal for males. I knew this day would come. I knew this day would come. In England, they're arguing that pedophilia is natural and normal for males. The presentation said pedophilic interest is natural and normal for human males. It says at least a sizable minority of normal males would like to have sex with children. Normal males are aroused by children. Normal now. Notice the word normal. Where did this come from? Was it in the back of a porn store in the 1970s? Was it from the despicable group NAMBLA? No. Was it from an underground website? No. The statement that pedophilia is natural and normal was made not 3 decades ago, but last July. It was not made in private, but one of the central statements of an academic presentation delivered at the invitation of the organizers to many of the key experts in the field at a conference held by the University of Cambridge, England. Now, we would expect such things to come out of England. We've long known that they're weak, that the men are all weak in England. We all know that aside from the soccer thugs, there is no England anymore. Other presentations by these psychotics included, quote, liberating the pedophile, a discursive analysis. They always mask their perversion and filth with highfalutin words. Another one of the topics of the sick degenerates at this university was, quote, danger and difference, the stakes of hebephilia. Many of you don't know what hebephilia is. It's not about liking people of the Hebrew faith. Hebephilia is the sexual preference for children in early puberty from 11 to 14 years of age. Another attendee at this conference of sickos was a man named Tom O'Carroll, a multiple child sex offender, longtime campaigner for the legalization of sex with children, and former head of the Pedophile Information Exchange. He said, wonderful. It was a rare few days when I could feel relatively popular. See, now last week in England, they convicted Ralph Harris, and I think he was a child entertainer, and the nation of Britain went into an anxiety state about child abuse in the 80s. But unnoticed was the amount of child abuse being promulgated right now in England. So I'm going to ask you a simple question. Not do you think is pedophilia normal, because we all know how sick it is. I'm going to ask you, if you were a victim of pedophilia and you're an adult today, how did it affect your life? Because I want the world that listens to my show, my universe of listeners, to tell their story so that these sick degenerates can be put back in the boxes that they came from. These sick degenerates, before they normalize pedophilia, which they're going to do. If I told you 50 years ago that there'd be a thing called gay marriage, you would have said I'm crazy. You said the world would never accept it. The very same forces for redefining what is acceptable in our society or what is the norm are now pushing the envelope and demanding that pedophilia be redefined as something normal. So if you care to sound off on this pedophilia nonsense, you can do so. Many adult pedophiles say that boys actively seek out sex partners. Then they say that childhood itself is not a biological given, but an historically produced social object. You understand where they're coming from, don't you? And this is why fathers listening to the show have to pay careful attention. You must pay careful attention to what I am saying. These sick throwback degenerates are everywhere around you. They're in the universities primarily, but they're around you. And they will damage your child. They'll damage your son. They'll damage your daughter for life. And that's why you as a father must become the godfather of your own children. Society will not protect you. Just as this administration has broken the borders and is committing a crime on a daily basis by ushering in hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens who will never be productive members of this society. They're going to be wards of the state, and I can prove it because the man behind it all, Obama, is demanding $2 billion of your tax dollars to take care of these non-citizens. I'm warning you that this society will never protect your children. It never has, and it never will. Now you understand why the father is so important in the family. Now you understand why, in past days, honor was the most important thing in a family. A man was willing to go to prison to protect his honor and the honor of his family. A man was willing to kill to protect his children. A man wouldn't say, oh, my, you shouldn't have touched my child that way. He would have done something pretty severe to anyone who hurt his child. And so should you understand what's going on in the society, you'll understand what's required of you to protect what's yours, what you've brought into this world, because they're defenseless. And right now we have the wolves, the psychopathic wolves, circling your child in the universities, arguing that pedophilia is normal, that boys want to be molested by older men. If you think this is something new, you're mistaken. In Roman times, it was quite common. And that's where Christianity came in. Christianity put an end to this kind of disgusting behavior. Now you understand why they're trying to burn down the church teachings. Now you understand why Christianity is more important today than it ever was. Now you understand what the battle is all about. It's about your little boy. At the end of the day, it comes down to your innocent little boy. The wolves would like to take that little boy and play with it. The wolves would like to take your little girl and play with it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Do you understand how fast we have melted down as a society? Do you understand what you must do in order to protect your children? First, have knowledge. First, understand what's going on. This is the savage nation. It's not a... So they're trying to, when I say they are, I mean many in the academic establishment, trying to push the boundaries of the acceptability of child sex. And they're arguing that pedophilia is natural and normal for young boys. And you say, this is just an obscure article, it's not going to happen. What you don't understand is that the left wing believes that sex by or with children is just another repressive boundary to be swept away. The left wing says sex by or with children, your child, your daughter, your innocent little boy, maybe you just gave birth to a little boy or a little girl, and you think you're a liberal. I'm warning you that to the radical left that is now running America, behind closed doors, one of their agenda items is to argue that sex with children is just another repressive boundary to be swept away like homosexuality was and gay marriage and straight marriage. This is what's going on in academia. Don't say I didn't warn you. They're saying that anyone who argues against this is a prejudiced person and is prejudiced against child sex. If you have a prejudice against sex with children, you're a bad person. And the books that are being written are aimed at social workers, community workers, probation officers, and child care workers. Dr. Taylor wrote that the public generally thinks of pedophiles as sick or evil men who lurk around school playgrounds in the hope of attempting unspecified beastliness with unsuspecting innocent children. He assured his readers that that was merely a stereotype, inaccurate and unhelpful, which flew in the face of the, quote, empirical realities of pedophile behavior. So just as sitcoms now routinely show men living with men and you've accepted it, women living with women and you've accepted it, and then the canned laughter comes in, they're now working to make sex with children acceptable to you. You say it's not true? It is true. And I'm going to ask you to come on this show and explain what it did to you so that you can show arguments to those who are arguing that pedophilia is healthful and normal. WMAL in Washington, D.C. Gene, you're the first up. Go ahead, please. Tell your story.
Hello, Michael?
Yeah, make it quick, though. I have only a minute.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to say that can't be anything further from the truth. I was a victim of it from a close member of my family, and what it does to a human being, especially a child. I think as a child you have natural thoughts about sex as you hit your teens, and that's natural to make you into the adult that you need to be. But for them to misread it and to twist it into something that makes sense for a pedophile is absolutely disgusting. It rips your soul apart. It leaves a hole inside of you, and you go on through life thinking that you've done something so horrible and so wrong.
That's right. It makes the child feel like the child is wrong. The child feels dirty. The child feels like the evil one. Yes, my friends, pedophilia is a crime that should be punished by death. It should never be acceptable. In any sane world, it will never be acceptable. But with the radical left now running our culture, anything is possible.
Join the Savage Nation.
Here's some news related to the topic. Just today, Monday, Pope Francis begged forgiveness from the victims of clergy sex abuse as he held his first meeting with several abuse survivors. The Vatican quoted Pope Francis as expressing personal sorrow in his homily at a private mass with 6 victims for the sins and grave crimes of clerical sex abuse against them. So I've raised the topic of pedophilia outside of the church scandal because rife in academia right now is a movement to normalize pedophilia, sex with children. And rather than going on and talking about the psychotics who are behind this, rather than telling you that the American Psychiatric Association, which is filled with some of the most mentally deranged people on the planet, in my opinion, there was a proposal to include sex with children as a disorder. As a disorder. Now, it was defeated, but it was argued and almost won. It's not a moral crime, it's just a disorder. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that, watch out. They're going to be pushing this very rapidly soon because of the meltdown of our culture as a result of the atheist in the White House. When have you last seen Obama go to church? When have you last seen him hold a Bible? When have you last heard him use the word God? He is God. He doesn't need to refer to God. He is God. He's a God unto himself. And so if you think an individual, a leader, has no impact upon the people, you're mistaken. Even if the leader is doing it for show only, it's very important that they show that respect for God, even if it's just for the people's sake. But he won't even do that. And so we're talking about you as a victim of pedophilia. I want you to come before the audience of the Savage Nation. You hide your name, of course. We're not asking you to disclose yourself. And I want you to tell the world what it did to you as a person and how it affects your everyday life. And the reason I'm doing it is to build up an armamentarium against these sick, degenerate academicians and others who are trying to push this. It's that simple. So, Jill on WABC, thanks for stepping forward on the Savage Nation. Why don't you tell your pedophilia story?
Well, I was 5 years old. My parents were divorced, and my mother married my stepfather, and she became pregnant. And basically, my stepfather decided I would be a good substitute for my mother.
Oh.
It only lasted about a year. My older sister caught us. My mother left my stepfather only for a brief amount of time, and then we returned to live with him. And I, as a small child, didn't realize anybody really knew about it. I sort of buried it and thought it was my secret. And believe me, the secret and the hatred of my stepfather ate me alive my whole life. So
now, I don't want to dwell on this. Did it affect your ability to meet a man and get married?
I've been married 3 times.
Now, do you think that your inability to maintain a relationship, of course, is related to this psychological damage?
I do, because I think I choose the wrong people.
Now, okay, this is intriguing to me, and I'm sure it will be to my listeners. You seek out people who what? Look like your stepfather or what?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in a couple of cases, that's true. Yes.
And that's really amazing. So you made these mistakes. You looked for men who were like your stepfather. They looked like that. They looked like him.
Well, they're also people who are on the outside of society. I don't mean that as a moral judgment, but let's say more actors, musicians. I don't seem to go for people who would give me a steady life and make me feel like I had high self-esteem. I tend to go towards people who are very egotistical, and because I feel less than, I believe.
Well, you seem to be quite knowledgeable about yourself. Have you been able to alter your behavior in any regard?
Well, yes, I had a lot of help because I did become I am an alcoholic, and I did go to treatment, and the 12-step program helped me a lot. Even though I'm not involved with that program anymore, I have managed finally to stay sober.
It's very sad. I guess, Jill, what you're saying is what I'm trying the audience of my program to understand is that this is not a laughing matter. This is not to be taken lightly. Sex with children will destroy them for life.
Right, yes, I believe that's true. And you can recover to a certain extent, but I feel...
Let me give you some help here. I'm going to give you some help here. I'm going to quote Sigmund Freud, the greatest mind in the history of psychiatry, who has been debased by the same forces that have tried to drive God out of America. They've tried to drive some of the greatest minds of our entire life out of our minds and put in these lesser fools, great fools to replace them. So they drove Sigmund Freud out of the textbooks of psychiatry, saying he didn't know what he was talking about. Sigmund Freud wrote that if you awaken one day and find out that you can only crawl on one arm and one leg, meaning the other arm and leg are gone, he said then you crawl on one arm and one leg. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Now, I want to tell that to the people listening to the show, many of whom are broken, and they're seeking some kind of answers, whether it be through the radio show or in other ways. They tune in and out of the show figuring, I don't know why they're listening. It's not just about politics. They're looking for something else. They're looking for something else, and I know it. And the something else is the wide knowledge I have from the many years of reading and the many years of studying and the many higher degrees I have, the many books I've published. Although I'm not a psychiatrist, I've read widely in psychology. I've read all of Jung, all of Freud, all of Adler. I know all of the psychiatric literature of those days. You say, well, we've gone way beyond it. No, we haven't gone way beyond it. No, it's like going back and looking at the great masters in painting. It's like looking at great art and then saying we've gone way beyond it because someone smeared garbage on a canvas and sold it for $35 million. It doesn't mean it's a superior painting any more than modern psychology means it's superior to that of Freud and Jung. So the point I'm making is some of the writings, were so insightful that they're made for the ages. They were not made for the time. And so when Freud wrote, if you wake up one day and find out that you're so damaged that you could only crawl on one arm and one leg, then crawl on one arm and one leg. That is so comforting to know in an age when everyone is seeking to be perfect. Is it not, Jill?
Absolutely, yes. And I feel I've moved on with my life, and in some areas I've been very successful.
But, Jill, what I'm trying to say to my audience is none of us are perfect. We're all crawling like a bug sprayed with Raid. And we all pretend that we're gods. We all pretend we're perfect. It's good to seek perfection. It's good to be the strong man or the strong woman. It's good to try to be a god or a goddess. But we're never going to achieve it because there's only one God above us, and he doesn't like competition. He made us imperfect, and he made us fallen angels for a reason. That doesn't mean we should then dwell on our weakness. Oh, no, by all means try to be strong, but you're never going to achieve perfect strength is my point. And when you realize that you're never going to achieve perfect strength, that you can only be what you can be, and you can only be so good as you can be up to a certain point, that's also good enough. That's also good enough to be a person. And unfortunately, a lot of kids who are affected by pedophilia try to be perfect. Did that affect you? Were you a perfectionist?
Yes, I'd have to say that I am.
But did you drive yourself trying to be perfect at everything you did?
Well, I think especially when it comes to men, I try to be perfect.
I see. In order to please the stepfather.
Yes.
And make him stop hurting you.
Well, I think I feel guilty about the hatred I have for him. I think.
Oh, well, no. Don't ever feel guilty about hatred. Let me tell you right now. Anger is a very important emotion. It's a very healthy emotion if it's directed at the right person. Is he still living?
No. He's been deceased for 20 years.
Do the people around him know what he did to you?
Only my sister and my husband.
Well, sometimes it's best to let sleeping dogs lie as well, Jill. I think that 20 years later, although you're still living with the pain sufficient to have called the radio program to talk about your pain of having been a victim of child sex abuse, More or less, it's better to let it go at this point, is it not?
Absolutely, but I thought I might help people and definitely help stop this idea where this is normal and is not going to hurt children. That's really why.
That's my Jill. That's why I did the show. You know, I gotta confess to you, we had many other topics to discuss today, and I ran this by my younger producers. They're all in their 20s. They said, "Don't do the topic. It's too painful. We don't want to hear it." I ran it by a very smart woman. She said, "Don't do this." She said, I wouldn't listen to it. It's too painful. And I said, no, I'm going to do it because, A, it interests me greatly. B, I think we can stop the pain in many people who are listening to realize they're not alone. And 3, maybe, just maybe, we can defend one little innocent child downstream from some sick, evil predator. You know?
Yes.
Jill, thanks for listening. So there it is. There it is. I mean, I want you to listen to the show today and understand it's not going to be political every day of my life. It cannot be. Obama, as evil as he is, and he is evil, make no mistake about it. If you want me to define evil, I will. That's a man who wants to transform a society that was imperfect, but the best society the planet had ever seen, with more opportunity for more people than ever seen on the earth before. He wants to transform that into what? No, this evil community social worker is pure evil, but he's not the sun, the moon, and the stars. And I'm not going to let his shadow cast an umbra on all of science, all of psychology, all of poetry, all of art, all of literature, and all of everything else. He is not that important. Darn it. He's just not that important. And the shadow that he casts will one day disappear like a dark cloud over this land. I don't know one sane person who currently works for a living, who is not depressed because of what this evil man is doing to this country. I don't know one person. I don't meet one person. And I'm talking about people tops in their field, people who've killed themselves their whole life to achieve something. Every one of them sees what this shadow is doing to this country. There's not a man from a supermarket checkout clerk to a man who had a chain of cancer centers who does not see what this evil man is doing to this country. Almost like an evil force, him and Eric Holder and the 4 invisible horsewomen of the apocalypse, and their intent. They have no idea how far this will go, especially since we have no opposition party. But they are not the sun, the moon, and the stars. Life must go on. Even in the darkest of times, there must be music. Even in the darkest of times, there must be poetry. Even in the darkest of times, there must be art. Even in the darkest of times, one must live. And that's why I say I cannot let these evil forces overshadow everything else on this radio program, or else I would not be able to do the show. There is no reason for me to get up and do the show anymore if all it's going to be is about these evil influences on this society. And on the world, by the way. They've wrecked everything they've touched. There's not a single achievement of this administration, not a single achievement to the positive. It's all negative. They're taking a wrecking ball to everything around the planet and getting away with it because there is no media and no opposition party. We know that. And so that's why I'm talking about this topic. This is very important. The children, I look at them. I see people having children everywhere. I see pregnant women and babies. And I look at them, I almost start to weep. I say, my God, what kind of world are they bringing these children into? I see the wolves of Islamofascism growling and ripping people apart around the planet. And I see little white babies walking around with mothers putting them on corners to sell lemonade here in the lily white suburbs north of San Francisco. Like suddenly it's 1950 and it's a Life magazine cover. And I say to myself, these children are going to be victims their whole life. They're going to be enslaved. They don't even understand what's coming. You've got an evil administration bringing in 300,000 illegal alien women and children who will not work. They're not being brought here to work. They're not going to pick lettuce. They're not going to clean houses. They're being brought in as welfare recipients. Why? Why would a sane society bring them in? What is the intent? Well, the intent is quite clear. It's to make the country into a third world nation. He wants to level the entire society. They are diehard communists, all of them. And they're demonic, and they're powerful, and they're strong. And so I look at the children, and I say, oh, my God, what kind of future are these children going to have? So I say, well, what can I do about this? Well, I try to warn their parents. The parents are oblivious, most of them. They don't know what's going on around them. They think because they went to college and they make $75,000 a year that they're smart, or $100,000 a year, or $125,000 a year, or they inherited money from their mothers, whatever. But the children are being brought into a world where they're going to be slaves. I don't mean slaves in chains necessarily. I mean societal slaves. I'll be right back. In England, pedophilia is natural and normal for boys. That's how some university academics are making the case for pedophilia at conferences this summer. Now, it's in England, but it's also in the subterranean texts of the United States of America. What's going on now is that the academic establishment is pushing the boundaries on the acceptability of child sex. And so I've asked you to call to tell the world, as a testament to what it's done to you as an adult. Here's an article related to it. And by the way, Don, Jay, Noodles, Josh, Keith, please stay on the line if I don't get to you. I'm almost out of time. Here's a news article related to this. North Carolina mom battles Facebook over child photo meant to mimic the Coppertone pose. A North Carolina mother and photographer was temporarily banned from Facebook after she posted a photo of her young daughter's exposed buttocks in what she claims was an innocent recreation of the famous Coppertone girl pose from 1953. Now, Facebook was correct for doing that because there are pedophiles out there who will use this as pornography. I agree 100% with Facebook. The mother is a sicko. The mother's a sicko, in my opinion. She posted a picture of her 2-year-old's bathing suit bottom pulled down by her friend at the beach. No, my friends, the world is changing, and there's a lot of predators out there. It's a vicious world. Wake up. Nevertheless, I want to talk about something to me which is more personally important to you, which is pedophilia, because in English academic societies and British academic societies, they're arguing that pedophilia is natural and normal for males. At current summer conferences, according to Andrew Gilligan of Telegraph UK, in parts of the academic establishment, there is a movement to push the boundaries of the acceptability of child sex. This is nothing new. The psychotics have been doing this for a long time. And there used to be a group called NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association. There's no longer a NAMBLA per se. They're now working for the Department of Health and Human Services. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Many of them have been normalized. They're taken right into the left-wing regime. Oh, yes. They don't have to have a group called NAMBLA. All they got to do is work for the Department of Health and Human Services. How many of these children coming in across the Mexican territory have been raped? They say a high number of them are being raped on the way in. So who's pushing this? Well, I don't want to talk about this infected immigrant story. I want you to call me if you were abused as a child so that we can warn Americans not to be gulled into accepting pedophilia as something normal. There are other topics I'll get to, but not right now. Let's go to WABC in New York City. Louise, welcome to the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I come from a large family. I have 5 sisters, and we were all sexually abused by our own grandfather. And our families turned a blind eye because this was all swept under the rug, even by the church. So every one of us have struggled with some type of substance abuse addiction. I have one sister who has had about 15 suicide attempts. We're all middle-aged. I'm in my 50s. None of us can maintain normal relationships with men. And my issue is that there should not be a statute of limitations on this crime. It's a horrific crime because as children, you are so screwed up. You do not deal with this or even admit to it until you're years older. I did not start a therapist until I was in my 40s, and I'm still dealing with it. I'm 56 right now. I went out with abusive men. I married an abusive man. I'm divorced. I finally had a decent man in my life for 10 years, and I destroyed that relationship because all my anger was taken out on him.
Unbelievable. Wait, no, this is I have to catch what you're throwing here. This is an amazing story. Louise, were you able to hold a job in your life?
I did. I'm actually retired. I'm a retired New York City detective.
Unbelievable. Wait, this is so interesting. I don't mean to stand here and, have fun listening to you. As a detective, what kind of crimes did you focus on?
I I did not have a lot of child abuse. My younger sister is also a cop. She had a lot of that. I had basic domestic violence.
But, Louise, isn't it interesting that you would have chosen to go into police work?
Absolutely. We most of us go into service work.
No. I'm saying as a victim of child abuse yourself, isn't it interesting that you would seek an authority position with a gun in a club?
Yes, absolutely. Authority, and also we're there to help because I'm also a nurse.
Wow, you sound like a wonderful person. You sound like the real Nurse Jackie without the drug addiction.
The terrible part of this is that of this type of abuse, and what it does to you is you never feel like a whole person. You carry this abuse and what's done to you for the rest of your life. And
did you hear me in the last hour, Louise? Did you happen to hear my last hour when I quoted Sigmund Freud, who said that if you awaken one day and discover you have only one arm and one leg, crawl on one arm and one leg? Did you happen to hear that?
And I love that. And what happens is that, as I said, I have family members that have numerous suicide attempts because some people can't survive on one arm and one leg, or the life is just too difficult. One thing that I've learned in a group therapy, actually in a rehab, because, like I said, I'm an alcoholic. I heard you had another woman on who's also an alcoholic. Everyone in my family is addicted to some type of a substance. And I was in rehab with a man who was abused. He happened to be a fireman, who he was abused as a child by foster parents, sexually and physically, and Catholic Church by the priest. He used the word, "I'm damaged goods." And when he said that, my eyes lit up, because my entire life I feel I'm damaged goods and I'm not good for anyone. And that is how children who become adults, who have been abused by adults that we thought we could trust, that is how we feel, that is what we portray, and we hide. We hide our feelings, and how people said to me, "Wow, you really got it all together." They had no idea what was going on inside of us. They have no idea.
Louise, you said it was your grandfather, your actual grandfather?
Yes, it was our paternal grandfather. And you live with this forever. It does not go away.
Now, wait, he did this to you and all your sisters?
Yes, he did. And cousins, and his own daughter, my aunt. Yes.
Wait. And none of them ever said anything to other adults at the time?
No, this was this old school, and people just didn't talk about it. They swept it under the rug.
Wait, Louise, you're telling me so much that I have to grab hold of this. How could so many children keep a tight lip on this?
Well, they did. No one said anything. And the only one who did was one of my sisters when she was 13 years old. She told my parents, and they never sat down. You know, the old school. I'm an old Bronx girl like you. Nothing was ever discussed. They didn't sit us down and talk about it.
Right. Everything was swept under the rug. You didn't say certain things. They would say probably grandfather wouldn't do a thing like that. What are you talking about?
Exactly. And when my sister did tell, it was my grandfather was confronted. He came into the house when nobody was home. She threw something at him. He threw something at her. She hit him. She was 13. 3 months later, that was her first of about 15 suicide attempts.
Oh, my God, the poor girl. Is she still alive, I hope?
She is, and she's struggling with life. She is struggling. You know what? As I said, I think...
Louise, I want to ask you a bizarre question. What is your ethnic background?
Oh, well, we're born American, but we're Irish, Italian, German. We're a mix. You're
a real New York family in that regard. New York, American. Yeah, I get it. But the thing was, socioeconomically, it was swept under the rug at that time. Without going into more detail, if there were no statute of limitations and your grandfather was still alive, is he still living?
No, my God, no, he's dead.
And did he, when you say abuse, was this the real McCoy or just hugging and kissing you?
Oh, no, this was the real McCoy. This was abuse, and he abused everyone. He physically abused the boys. He would come into the house. He was such an evil man. We had a big dog. He'd come into the house, and he'd kick the dog in the testicles. He was
oh, my God. He was just pure evil.
Abusive, evil man. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to get into too many details. Did this man have a job?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he was very prominent. He actually ran for Bronx Borough president in the 1930s.
Oh, that about fits. That fits.
He owned a real estate business. He was very active in the Catholic Church to the point where he abused, my father remembers this, that he abused a little girl in the late 30s, And my father said he remembers the woman going to the Monsignor, going to the church, reporting him, I want him arrested, and the church talked her out of it and swept it under the rug.
Oh, my God. Well, Louise, I'm almost breathless from your pain, to be honest with you. It's painful to listen to you. It's almost heartbreakingly painful. And all I can say is you're not alone. I mean, maybe it's good for you to express yourself like this on a national radio show. Do you feel it's good to do this, or do you think it's somewhat going to be negative for you?
I think it's positive, and I wanted to do this, Mike, because I know how prevalent this is. It is not talked about, and I do understand that it is becoming very acceptable for people to abuse and have sex with children and tell them it's okay. And I have children of my own, and I probably drove them insane about people touching them and doing things to them. But I'm realizing what's going on here, and you have a child trade throughout the world, and it's becoming acceptable. And it is destroying everyone. You are the only person that I heard, as soon as I heard about all these children coming across the border, the first thing out of my mouth was, this is going to be an underclass, an underculture. These children are going to be horribly, horribly abused.
Well, I am reading that many of them are abused in Mexico by the cartels who are bringing them in.
Absolutely.
What are they being brought in for? What are 2-year-old girls going to be used for? What are they bringing them in for?
There you go.
Louise, something doesn't make sense here.
No, I think evil is running the country. Evil is running the world.
Yes, I think evil is running the world right now. I think evil is out of control. I think Satan right now is very much in control, to put it in a biblical sense. And so I'm sitting here, sitting in the temple, looking at what's going on in the arena, seeing the people cheering as this madness continues. And all I can do is stand here and try to say, people, do you know what you're doing? People, do you know what you're doing to this country? Do you know what you're doing to the world with your insane dash towards freedom and liberalism? Do you have any idea what you've done and what damage you're going to do if you don't stop? And the answer is they don't care. And the band played on. Louise, the ship is going down, and they're on the rear deck dancing to the band at the back of the ship.
Well,
anyway, thank you. Louise, I don't know what to say to you. I feel that you and I have just had a moment of friendship on this radio show. We don't know each other. We probably will never meet each other. But I feel that we made a contact, a bond between us, rather, that's overwhelmingly beautiful, Louise.
But I thank you for addressing this. I want to see this addressed more, and people are just ignoring it. They're ignoring it.
Louise, thanks for calling the Savage Nation. That's 18 minutes after the hour now. And I think I'm going to stick with this topic a few more minutes. I mean, the news is so overwhelmingly evil, and we can't do anything about an out-of-control evil administration. If the opposition party won't do it, if the Supreme Court is stepped upon, what can we do is what you feel. So let's focus very much on ourselves and our families. I'll be right back.
Join.
The nation is melting down to a third world status, and at the same time, there is an intellectual foundation being laid for further damage to the fabric of our society, including that of pedophilia being normalized in some corners of academia. And some university academics are making the case for pedophilia at summer conferences being paid for with taxpayer dollars. If you think this is a small marginal issue, I hope you're right. However, if it's one child who is protected from one predator as a result of this radio program, then the entire day will have been worth living. Did you hear what I said? You know, unless you've had a child, you don't even know what I'm talking about. Let me be honest with you. You might be a good person, you might be a moral person, but unless you've seen a child enter the world and see how naked and innocent the baby is, an infant, and watch the infant grow into a child and then into an adolescent and then into a person, unless you understand how frail an infant really is and what total protection that infant needs, you have no way to understand what I'm saying to you. You may think it's amusing. You may think it's just some right-wing hysteria. You can laugh it off if you will. I could care less. I'm trying to talk to people who have children who are rather normal and want to protect their children from the pedophiles out there. And believe me, they're everywhere. Yes, they're everywhere, and especially in psychological and academic circles, because those are the soft areas. I didn't mean that every psychologist and every academic is a pedophile. Don't misinterpret what I just said. And that's why I've asked people to call with their story. Do you understand? WABC, Josh, thanks for holding. Tell your story. You're on the air with Michael Savage and millions of others.
Dr. Savage, I was molested at 7 years old by my uncle, my father's brother. I was asked to go down to the basement to help him pick something up. Innocent as I was now. I mean, I'm 51 now, and
you're still affected by it. To this day, it's like it's real.
Doctor, I'm sorry, but he beat me. He beat me, and he violated me. And I'm sorry, and I was...
Josh, where is this SOB monster today? Is he living?
Yes, and I pray that he's dead, that he dies. I'm
Josh, I want you to... Josh, please listen to me. Don't be ashamed for what you just said, nor for crying. It's the sign of health. Please stay with us, Josh. Please, don't go away. This is not a joke. This is a human being whose heart was broken 50 years ago.
Join
This is Savage Nation. You know, we're living in a time where people don't feel anything. Everyone's walking around with a device. They're on medication, or they're stoned on something, or drunk. And yet around us are individuals harboring unimaginable psychic pain that they've borne with them forever. And you say, well, why are you dwelling on it? Why are you talking about it? Why don't you do something to make people happy? Well, because I'm not an entertainer. I can be. But life can also not be that entertaining. It can also be very painful. And talking about this pain and trying to prevent it in another person is of value. It's that simple. And we're talking today about pedophilia. And we're talking today about the attempts to normalize sex with children in academic and psychological circles. And unless you stand up to it right now, I'm warning you, not in your lifetime, but sooner than you can imagine, the borders will come crashing down on all morality in this society. Just as Obama, because he is an evil atheist, destroyed our borders without even asking permission to do so, and that he's gotten away with it, the moral borders will be broken down completely unless you say, don't cross this line. Don't even think about crossing this line. You touch my child, I'll kill you. It's that simple. That's what it's going to take. I'm warning you. It's literally going to take a mother or a father with that kind of energy to protect their children with what's coming in this sick society. That's what I see. Why do I say it? Am I crazy? You think I'm nuts? You think I don't see what's coming in this society with every barrier being broken down under the guise of liberalism and progressivism and its freedom? You think I don't see what's coming? At the end of the day, you, the mother, are going to have to protect your children. And you're not going to have to worry about a lawyer or the police or a social worker. You're going to have to do what you know is right because they're not going to do it for you. In fact, they're liable to be the enemy rather than the friend if this keeps up and if everything keeps getting twisted. In other words, if Obama could turn the Border Patrol into coyotes, if Obama could turn the police into the enemy of the people instead of the protectors of the people, if Obama can use the NSA to spy on innocent Americans rather than Muslim terrorists, what might happen tomorrow? The world is upside down. Evil is everywhere. And so I care about the children. And I'm telling you to get ready because they're coming for your children. They're coming inside the schools. It starts nice. Oh, it starts nice. It doesn't start with them saying that they're going to molest your child. It starts with academic studies. It starts with papers, university papers, such as, quote, Liberating the Pedophile, a discursive analysis, or, quote, Danger and Difference, the Stakes of Hebephilia. This is how it starts. This is how the devil works. So I'm just telling you, you want to call about this, go ahead. Maybe you can prevent one case of child abuse by calling the show, by calling the Savage Nation. Let's go back to Josh on WABC. Josh, I'm sorry for your pain. You said your uncle, your father's brother, took you in the basement and beat you and molested you?
Yes, and for quite a while, and he went upstairs, and I was told to stay down there. And when I did come up, everyone said, what happened to you? I said, nothing, I just don't feel good, but I was bleeding profusely from a certain area, and washed, and I washed in the shower till I burned my skin.
Oh, God.
The next day I ran to my Monsignor, and he slapped me all over the rectory because he knew my uncle and said I was evil for even making such an accusation. So
Oh, my God. How in the world can a child take such pain?
51, and there's certain things in my life that I just can't seem to pass, but through God's grace I'm trying. But if any child is hearing me, I pray to God that they never go through what I went through, because I'm 51 and I try to stay grounded. But my God, there's so many nightmares. I was so young, and I'm old now, and I still could smell, feel the pain, wake up at night. I just don't get what I still blame myself, for the love of God, and I don't know why.
Oh, my God.
In the basement.
Yeah, no, that's the psychological trick here, Josh. The pedophile is the devil himself. And the pedophile makes the child feel as though he invited the sexual interaction. In fact, there are academics arguing that the children want the sex. Did you know that?
No.
Well, let me read it to you. Let me read it to you. Shall I read it to you? As recently as the year 2012, Professor Plummer published on his personal blog a chapter he wrote in another book, Male Intergenerational Intimacy, in 1991. And here is what he wrote, quote, "As homosexuality has become slightly less open to sustained moral panic, the new pariah of child molester has become the latest folk devil," he wrote. And let me continue, Josh. He wrote this: "Many adult pedophiles say that boys actively seek out sex partners, and that childhood itself is not a biological given, but an historically produced social object." That is Professor Ken Plummer, emeritus professor of sociology at Essex University in England, where he has an office and teaches courses. Can you believe this?
No, I can't. But doctor, let me just tell you something. I love my God with all my heart, and believe me when I tell you, you are like a friend to me. I run to your show every day, and you help me. And when I heard you open up this conversation, I dialed that phone until I got through, and you are a rare breed, and I thank God for you.
But Josh, wait, I can't just have you go and me say thank you and go on to the next call. I can't leave you like this. I can't do it. We got to talk another minute on these airwaves, Josh. First of all, are you alone right now?
Yes, I live alone. I can't live with nobody.
Well, who do you have to help you, Josh, when you get into these states?
My Bible.
Oh, jeez.
My Bible.
What pain in this world is enough to make you smash.
I hate him. When he died, nobody looks at me and my family. You know why? Because I didn't go.
Oh, so they blamed you. You were the bad guy.
They ostracized me. They don't. Yes. Yes. And I don't care, though.
Josh, do you have no one in your life that you can call right now?
You, Dr. Sam.
Yeah, but
you.
I'm just a guy on the radio, Josh. We don't know. Josh, have you ever? You've not tried to hurt yourself, I hope, have you?
Twice, but I failed at that. So God wants me here for something.
All right. So listen to me. You're not in that state right now, are you?
Not at all. I just hurt. I hurt when I hear these. It's like ripping off a scab.
Well, maybe I shouldn't have done the show. Maybe I should be guilty.
No. You don't know what you did. You make me see a different light. You make me know that there's hope, and I'm not the only one anymore.
Okay. Well, that's the whole point, Josh. You know, you heard a female call who was a detective, a retired New York City detective. Do you know how tough they have to be? And yet she's been walking around with the same hurt that you've had all your life, Josh.
I related to her so poignantly.
Josh, I'm trying to tell you there are people who, if you look at them, what you say when you walk the streets of Manhattan, let's say, or wherever you are, you look and you say, look how everyone is happy but me. Everyone's healthy but me. Everyone has somebody to go to but me. No one feels the pain I feel. You don't know how many others are carrying around this cancer.
I know. Now I know.
Well, Josh, if I can leave you with anything to hang on to, is this. You're not alone. You're not alone. It's an epidemic. It's an epidemic, and your sad story, whether you know it or not, has probably touched millions of people. They will talk about it, and they'll be in tears for your tears. Your pain will become their pain. And perhaps then they will pay closer attention to their own child. And when their own child may come to them and say, somebody wanted to do this or somebody wanted to do that, and if they're busy on an iPhone or they're busy making an appointment, maybe they'll put that iPhone down and pay attention to that little child.
May I just say one thing, too, before we leave?
Go, please.
Believe me, I love you. God bless you.
All right, Josh, I'm sorry you have such such a burden to carry. Well, a man once told me when I was young is that we all have a cross to bear. Josh sure has a heavy one. I don't know if I should continue this show. I mean, in this manner. I mean, I can't suddenly switch to meatball recipes. I can't do anything light. I can't talk about my dog. I can't talk about immigration, because it's going to be very hard for me to move off this topic, I'll be honest with you. You know, but it does fit my show. If the Savage Nation stands for America's borders, language, and culture, does the word culture not imply a certain morality? A certain morality that is a certain part of this nation until Obama came along and broke down all borders and all barriers? Do you understand psychologically that breaking down the border of a nation is the equivalent of breaking down all moral barriers inside the nation's mindset? Do you understand what he's intending to do? Do you understand what the left does? Do you understand that they want to kick in every barrier and every boundary without caring what the results may be? They may not even have an agenda. They are just destructive. Do you understand that? Anyway, that's one man's opinion. If you want to continue on this line of thought, we have a little time left in this hour. If you have a story that you think could somehow help somebody and you want to get it out of your system, go ahead. I don't know that I'm ever going to do this show again. I don't know. I don't think I can ever do it again. Maybe the young guys were right. Maybe they don't like this. Neil, Robert, how do you feel about this show? You can speak on the air. Robert, speak on the air. Tell me what you think. I want you to talk, if you can. Hit the right button, though, so don't lock.
It's a very powerful topic.
Neil,
that's what I think about it.
Okay, Robert. Neil, you're there in Dallas Control. What do you feel about the show, Neil? Okay, he's on the phone with Josh. Okay. I'll be right back on the Savage Nation to take your calls. Be here. Be You know, every once in a while, we step into subject areas that are unique and difficult for the audience. And this is one of those days. And we've heard from 3 or 4 people whose pain was so overwhelming, especially the last gentleman, that I'm afraid that there may be hundreds out there listening who are in tears right now, whose old wounds have been opened up, who the scabs have been ripped off. I'm going to give you a national crisis suicide hotline if you feel crazy, shaky, nuts, can't go on, don't know why I feel this way. 800-273-8255. National Crisis Suicide Hotline, 800-273-8255. Write it down. Don't laugh. 800-273-8255. Don't laugh. Psychic pain is worse than a broken arm. Psychic pain is worse than a broken leg, because a broken arm or a broken leg will heal in time, while psychic pain never heals. It's an injury that never gets better. Never. All you can do is manage psychic pain like this. You can't cure it. Some days are better than others. Some days you can ignore the pain, the rape, the molestation, the mild touching, whatever it was. Just passes through your mind and you can laugh it off and say, I'm an adult now. It happened a long time ago. Uncle James didn't really mean it. Well, no, Uncle James really did mean it. And Uncle James should be dragged into a jail right now, into a court. Uncle James, no matter how old you are, Uncle James should be turned out. But beware, because these feelings can be very damaging to you all over again. 800-273-8255. This is the Savage Nation. America's borders, language, and culture are our normal fare. Today we're talking about the normalization of pedophilia. Why? Because it's in the news. It's as simple as that. And as the show develops over the summer, I hope to do other topics that are a little, not off the beaten path, because they're very much on the beaten path of life, but they're off the beaten path of talk radio. I'm not going to get up here every day and read the Constitution to you or the Bill of Rights. I'm not going to sound like a Marxist professor who became a conservative late in life because it made money, wearing a dirty brown suit from Robert Hall with a tuna fish stain in his lapel. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I've always been a poet. I've always been an artist, and I've developed. And at the end of the day, poet and art are critical to my show. So I'm going to try to incorporate the poetry and art of our lives together. It's that simple. Politically, you know where I stand. Politically, I see what's going on. Politically, I see a monster in the White House, a monster surrounded by other monsters out to destroy everything of any value in this country. I don't have to read it as a headline in the Daily News to know what he's doing. Do I need some sicko at the New York Times to tell me what I know is? I don't need them to tell me what is. They need me to tell them what is. But I'm not going to do it every day. I'm not going to do it every day because we no longer have a nation. We have an oligarchy that's out of control, that's out to stampede this country into a third world status right in front of our eyes. If a sitting congressman from Oklahoma, a former Navy combat veteran and a pilot, tries to get into a holding center where they have these children from El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras, and they won't let a congressman in his own state, what the heck am I supposed to do if we have a lawless administration? Tell me what I'm supposed to do. If a Navy combat veteran, now a congressman, was barred entry into a child detention center with these children, a crime by this administration. A gang. If Meyer Lansky took over the country, he would have done a better job. If Meyer Lansky took over this country, he would probably be a more patriotic gangster than what we have right now. But what can I do about it? I see the truth, but I can't do a thing about it. Where's God when we need him? Where's God? Where's God right now? Where's the God that we need right now to save us from this demonic situation? It's as though the devil himself has taken over this country. You know, if I was alone in these thinking, I wouldn't even do the show anymore. I think I've gone crazy altogether from the pressure I'm under. But I meet people. I have a few people close to me. They're pretty successful. They're older men. They've worked all their lives. They've achieved greatness in their own fields. Everyone sees the same thing. No matter what field they're in, they know what Obama is and what he's doing. They don't have to turn to the newspaper to get their truth. They use their native intelligence and their logical faculties to know what's going on in the country.